don't know where to start. But what I would say to all of you, have any of you sat on a board or a commission? No? Okay, we are the governor, Jerry Brown, and now Gavin Newsom. They're always looking for women to get appointed to various boards and commissions. Their commitment is to having 50% of their appointees as women. So we are always looking for more women in the pipeline. And we can maybe have another session if you want, or California Women Lead does webinars and seminars on how to get appointed. It is not that difficult. You just have to be willing to serve and have the time to go to meetings. That's pretty much the criteria. And I know a lot of women don't want to, fly because as women, oh my God, hold on. Sorry, we just adopted this little one and she's not used to me being on Zoom calls. So she's like, pick me up. Anyway, so, a lot of women don't want to get involved in politics or jump in because we always say, oh, are we qualified? Let me think about it. Let me check in with my family. I'm not political. I haven't donated, but these are just barriers that prevent us from moving forward. And I guess I started out as a CPA, a small business owner, and wanted more contracting opportunities for women and minority businesses. So that's how I started in politics. And then one thing leads to another, and you get appointed to a local board or commission, and then you see that behind the screen, it's not that difficult to get into politics, right? Even though there's men at all levels of, whether it's politics, banking, legal, accounting, Hollywood. But I think now, as Robin just mentioned, I think the voters want more women in politics. The way we manage, the way we communicate, the way we think, listen, is desperately needed at this moment. And so would just encourage you all to think about either at your local level. I'm sure if you contact or go on your website at your local government or contact your local council member, they will say, we're always looking for qualified people to sit on the library board, the parks, the water. I mean, everything that happens in your city pretty much has a board or a commission. And like Linda said, so important for women to get more involved.
Fiona, tell us a little bit about how you got started. This was not your initial career path. You thought that, you would follow a completely different path, but then got drawn into government, got drawn into sort of the position you're at now. So tell us a little bit about your family, your immigration story, and then what led you, what was your original career, and then what led you to make this turn?
Yep. So my parents were both born in China, immigrated to Hong Kong, met in Canada, and then we settled in New York, where I was born and raised. So my parents wanted us to be a lead profession, lawyer, engineer, accountant, or a doctor. So I'm an accountant, my brother's an engineer, my sister's a doctor. We're just missing a lawyer in the family. So, got my bachelor's in accounting, started with one of the big 8 accounting firms, Ernst & Whinney, way back when, got my master's in taxation, and then decided or felt like my calling was not doing people's taxes, sitting in an office for 16 hours a day. Just wasn't what I perceived I was going to do the rest of my life. And so I spent a lot of time just trying to figure it out. I became a music promoter. I got my SAG card. I did everything. I sat on a lot of nonprofit boards, got appointed as a commissioner, and then finally saw that my passion is really helping people. My mother's father, my grandfather is a minister by training. My mother is an artist and was an art teacher. So she came from more of a, helping and contributing, a community member. And then my father, typical businessman, all about making money, right? Status, go out there. And so I kind of have, two sides of me. And I really felt like helping people is my purpose and my calling. And so that's what I did. I started, volunteering, sat on boards, started my own Democratic club, the West Side Chinese Democratic Club, got appointed to President Bill Clinton's U.S. Small Business Administration. They were always looking for appointees to evaluate small business owners so that they can give them an award, every year. So there's lots of positions if you just are open to it and you ask people, hey, what else can I do? Like, I'd like to get more involved. If it's politics, you look to me. If it's others, and then all of a sudden those doors will start opening to you. And I would say, don't be picky. People may say, oh, we want you to sit on this consumer protection board overseeing dental hygienists. And you may say, what do I know about being a dentist, right? Well, you go to a dentist, right? And as a consumer, you want to make sure that the consumers and you and your patients and your family are safe when you go and see a dental hygienist. And so there's a licensing board for that. There is a board for security officers, right? And you're like, why do I care about security officers? Well, you go into an office building, you work in an office building, you care about who is being licensed to oversee it. So there's all sorts of opportunities if you just open yourself up and ask for them.
I love that. And so tell us a little bit about how you were able to break through the barriers of being the first woman of color, the first woman CPA that moved into this position. So what was your journey to sort of move into your position, and how did your family react when you wanted to move into politics versus their expectation of you staying in more of a professional services kind of role?
Yeah. So you can imagine my parents were not, or my dad was not pleased about me leaving accounting. And so still to this day, I still am a CPA. I do my 80 hours of continuing education every 2 years, even though I don't really practice. But just staying on top of the new tax laws, I think is very helpful. And then now, 20 years later, as the treasurer, I think keeping up with all of my finance and accounting background has been helpful. And this job is my fourth elected position. Linda talked about the trillions and the billions. It does not intimidate me because that is my background. And sometimes, life comes full circle, right? You do something or you're trained to do something. You may not feel passionate about it, but then in the end, it is very, very helpful. And so I'm happy about that. So I would say my parents didn't want me to go to politics. I got elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. They didn't really understand that. Then I got elected to the state assembly. They didn't really get that. Then the Board of Equalization, my dad looked it up. He's like, oh, it's a tax board. Okay, getting closer. But now as treasurer, he's finally like, okay, my daughter is the treasurer of the fourth or fifth largest economy. It doesn't bug me to go back to do accounting anymore. Yep, you're on.
That is so funny. Thank you, Fiona, for sharing that. So what are some of the obstacles or the barriers, the bias that you experienced as you began to climb the political ladder to become the treasurer over the fifth largest economy in the world? What did you experience, and how did you overcome those things?
Well, this is a man's world, okay? Just like most of the other industries that we all are involved with. And the men tend to help each other, right? The lobbyists are the ones that get hired by corporations and can allocate money to politicians. And the lobbyists will usually max out, let's say it's $4,900. They will max out to the guy. To me, they will give me $1,500 and say, oh, call me next quarter, so then I have to call them again. And normally people don't like to do to fundraise or to call people. So I have learned that in order to get around that bias, that I'm going to have events every month. And so I call these people every month until I get the maximum out of them. Now, it may seem like a lot of work, but I have built better relationships with people because I am constantly, calling them, hey, how are you doing? Versus once you give money once, you're usually off the radar and people don't call you again. So sometimes you have to look at the negative and turn it into a positive. You also have to learn to work with men, right? And men, act differently. They want to smoke cigars, they want to go golfing, they want to go fishing. And so you have to kind of do those things with them. And these days, it's not as easy because of being politically correct, right? So some of the old school men are still saying and doing things the way they used to do things and getting in trouble, but they have to change as well. So it's getting better for women in terms of not having to listen to negative language and sexist remarks and stuff, but it's still definitely a man's world. And if you're following who's running for governor, there's tons of men jumping in every single day, right? My good friend Eleni Kounalakis, who's been the lieutenant governor, the ambassador to Hungary, had her own business, successful. She's running for governor, and so I am supporting her. But every day another guy jumps in, and you're like, really? But that's kind of how they are, and men just self-appoint themselves, and they think they're better than they are. And the women, we just try to work hard and try to be a little bit smarter, but we definitely have to build coalitions. And I think my success is being able to work with all the members. I was the majority whip in the assembly, as well as the speaker pro tem. So it didn't matter if you were a guy or a gal or a Republican. I was able to work with you, and we just find common ground. We don't have to talk about politics, things that divide us. But as long as you can work with people, I think that's the way you kind of move up the ladder.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fiona. I know that you have to leave a little early, but I'm hoping that we might be able to open it up for a few questions to those people that are here that may be interested in your career, some of the obstacles you face, or how they could follow in the footsteps of getting more politically active so that they're able to create the kind of change in their community that they're looking for. So does anyone have any comments or questions for Fiona? No? Okay, I do have one question for Fiona. Oh, Cheryl, yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And then I have a question as well. So please, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies for being late. Unfortunately, I'm double booked, so I have to skirt out soon too. But I guess for me, I'm in the mining space here in Canada. And I'm also part of a couple of groups where, we're really trying to elevate that space for women and creating that diversity within the mining space, not just, in Canada, but from a global perspective. And so our group is made up globally. So I guess, more pointed, we were having dinner a couple of weeks back, and it was interesting to listen to the senior executives. And, one of the things they commented with one of the world leading mining companies is that to what I just heard was, decisions are made on the golf course, and women are not invited. And so how do we get invited was kind of what went through my head. How do we change that? It's kind of like the proverbial smoke shack. If you're a smoker, everybody that goes out to the smoking pit, they solve all the issues. And so how do we change? I just came off another powerful piece, and I'm sorry I lost my question, Linda. It's been a whirlwind here. But one of the things I just heard from an executive, she was a mine general manager, the first known mine general manager, and her comment in Canada was to just be authentic. And so part of busting those barriers is what I heard just now, is you've got to inject yourself, and you just got to stay true and authentic to who you are and bring those emotions, show up messy and beautiful, and don't apologize.
I love
who
that,
you are.
Cheryl.
That's their discomfort, not ours.
Yeah.
So
Fiona,
maybe
what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as women, right, we are at least 50% of the population, but clearly not represented. I would say you start forming your own groups, because as you start becoming more popular, right? Whether you're having monthly meetings or then you have like a conference, then they start looking at you as someone who is more important and, that they should elevate. So unfortunately, a lot of us, we just wait and we're like, oh, like, look at us, recognize us. We work so hard. But that's not how they equate it. They equate it, management, leadership by what you bring to the table. So if you are involved in different organizations, appointments, you're an appointee and you rise up the ranks, that's how, in your own community. It doesn't have to be in their community, in the men's community, right? You're not going to learn how to play golf like them because people who play golf don't want to play with beginners. So forget about, learning to play golf, but try to figure out how to, at these mining conferences, right? You be the panelist. You introduce, you become a leader, right? President, vice president. And so there's ways for us to excel without having to, be upset at work every day that we're not the president. But if you do, like you said, Cheryl, you're authentic, you care, you show up, you connect. That is very, very important. Then doors will definitely open to you. And then you have to find those male mentors, right? Men who will say, hey, I will take you. Okay, you may not golf, but come after. Meet us for drinks, meet us for dinner, or come to breakfast before so I can introduce you around. So that's kind of, that's a secret also of success is you have to find those men who will bring you in. And I've had a number of great political men in my life that really treat me like their daughter. And so they bring me, they come and support you.
That's wonderful, Fiona. Robin, I see you have your hand up. So I wanted to ask you to jump in.
Yeah, just great. So thank you so much. I voted for you. Yay, we need more women at the top. So my question is, how have you been able to find common ground when you were in the legislature? How were you able to find common ground and move things forward with people that you disagreed with or they disagreed with you? Obviously, that's a highly pertinent topic today. So how can you find common ground with people you disagree with in a way that moves forward a positive agenda?
Yep. So I was part of a couple women. They were called Cordial Caucus, and they would throw events every couple of months. I decided, since I like karaoke, that I was going to change it to a karaoke caucus. And back then, a lot of people didn't want to be caught on video singing, especially if you're not a good singer. But now that is like my Nixon ping pong diplomacy. People love to come to karaoke, and I would make sure that I would list an equal number of Republicans and Democrats on the host committee. And all it cost, it didn't cost them any money. They just had to show up. That's it. And so they would feel obligated to show up. And then when they showed up, their staff would show up, the lobbyists would show up. And now it's just a big kind of get together that, that is not political. Even though it's a capital community, anyone can come. You don't have to pay money. And so everybody kind of feels equal in that environment. And it's a fun evening for a couple hours where you don't have to deal with politics. So I would say take it out of the Capitol, right? That's kind of what I would do. And that's what I did in the assembly to get along better with my colleagues. I also would show up at their fundraisers. So we all have fundraisers where the lobbyists come, and normally, Republicans only have Republican lobbyists and Democrats have their Democratic lobbyists. But to be able to cross over, if I'm willing to go to their events and they're happy to see me, I would invite them to my events. And that would help them because they would meet lobbyists that they not necessarily would interact with because of their party or the committees that they were on. And then the third thing is taking delegation trips. Whenever you travel with people and have a positive experience, especially, they tend to be lifelong friends. And so I have been taking delegations back to China since 1999. And China is not an easy country to get into because of language barriers and characters. You can't really go and figure it out you need to have a translator when you go. And so I was able to invite a lot of my Republican colleagues to come with me. And even today, we are still lifelong friends. We still help each other out. If someone is running against them on the Democratic side, and I really like them as a Republican, I may not endorse against them, right? So just those little things further those relationships. And I would say out of all the states, California is probably the least partisan, right? We don't argue about immigration like other states do because we have such a big agriculture community, right? Service, hotel, hospitality that depends on workers. So what do we really argue about here in California? I don't know, social issues, maybe, maybe too much government, high taxes, right? But those are kind of common, but it's not really pitting, us against them or one against the other. It's just really, issues that affect all of us, housing, homelessness. And so we all are trying to do what we can to address these issues.
I love that, Fiona. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have any other questions? All right, so I have one. You said immigration is not necessarily a contentious issue in California, which I find actually a little surprising because it is certainly contentious here in Texas. So let's take any kind of issue like that and not becoming political, but just sort of thinking through how do you create consensus? One of the great examples you just give us is providing value first, showing up for other people, developing those relationships, ensuring that whatever is important to them becomes important to you. So really listening to what's important to other people and making those issues important to you and really extending value immediately, like really doing what you can to serve other people. I love that. And I think that's applicable whether you're in politics, in business, in entertainment, in any kind of circumstance, providing value and really listening to what's important to other people and seeing what you can do to further their dreams, their expectations, their purpose, their mission, their vision is really job number one. But when you come to a situation where there really is a difference of opinion, there really is, you're coming at it from two very different angles and you want to preserve that relationship. That relationship is primary. That is a really important relationship that you want to preserve and you want to deepen and grow. But you are coming at an issue from very different positions. How do you bridge that, or how do you build that bridge? How do you bridge that gap?
Well, I think we are all brought up with certain biases, right? Growing up, we were brought up a certain way. Then depending on whether you watch a certain TV channel or follow someone, then you continue, to kind of speak to the choir. If there's an issue I don't understand or an industry, I want to dig deep into it before I take a position. So when I was in the legislature, I did not know anything about agriculture. I grew up in New York on Long Island, Great Neck, close to Manhattan, and then moved to San Francisco. We don't really grow anything but pot or weed in San Francisco. So I said, I want to go sit on this committee. Now my staff said, why do you want to do that? Like, they're never going to accept you, these farmers. They're all Republican. They all live in rural communities. They're just not going to, to like you, basically. And I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to find out. And so I did one tour and I figured out very quickly that I know nothing about agriculture. We grow 400 different products here in California. And over the last 12 years, I've probably done over 200 tours now. And it changes your opinion, right? If you're a Democrat, normally, I'm just going to say this is the stereotype. If you're a Democrat, you think all farmers are wasting water, they're spraying pesticide all over the fields, they treat their farm workers poorly, right? And then when you go out there and you meet with these farmers and ranchers, number one, they're great conservationists. This is family land that's been in their families, many generations. Number two, the people that work with them and work for them, they become like family members. They're dependent on them to help them, with their work, and they're providing scholarships and, living quarters for their workers. And then three, they are out on the farm every day. They don't want to be sprayed with pesticide either. right? Their family members are out there. Their dogs are running around. They have animals usually around their farms and ranches. So, so then the perception changes. And then when I'm arguing, and sometimes I had to, argue against some of my Democratic colleagues, but my thing was, I've been doing this. I've been out on tours. I've met, listened, and heard and experienced. Like, have you? And then as soon as they figure out that they haven't really done their homework and they're just listening to one side, then they kind of have to back down. But it's not always easy because sometimes I'm voting against, my Democratic colleagues who want to take this hardline position without understanding. So that's what I would say is, if you don't understand something, go out and do your research, do those tours, talk to experts before you take a position that may be controversial, or you may be contradicted because you don't really understand, you haven't done your homework.
I love that. So to bridge or to build bridges, to bridge gaps, it's really about taking an attitude of curiosity. It's about, well, why do you believe that? And what am I missing? And what do I need to learn about in order to better understand your perspective, right?
Yeah, and it's scary because when you first go out there, I mean, the farmers, rural farmers, they're mostly men that come and meet you. I show up looking like I am, sometimes, and then it's scary, right? They're scared of me, I'm scared of them. But after they see that I'm willing to go out there and visit with them and listen to them, then now, I mean, the Farm Bureau endorses me every race. The California cattlemen endorse me. The cattle women embrace me. They want me to come and speak because, as a Democrat, I'm kind of an anomaly. And they're always asking, well, how do we get more people like you interested? And I'm always like, invite us. Those that are curious, those that want to learn will come. Those that don't want to and want to just sit in, on their side, then just don't bother with them. But I think it makes a huge difference.
I love that. Any other questions about Fiona's path, how she sort of stepped her way into being state treasurer, how she got involved, or anything about how she deals with allocation of funds, how she deals with investment, anything about that? Well, that's a question that I have is, you have about, I don't know, several 100,000 lobbying groups and interest groups and people that are coming at you asking for something. And, they're asking for support. They're asking for funding. They're asking for investment. They're asking for priority. They're asking for legislation. So how do you begin, Fiona, to sort through all the requests that your office receives all the time, every single day? How do you begin to sort through those things, prioritize those things, and then take action against it so that these requests don't go into a black box? They actually are actioned, and there is some response coming from your office, but you have to have some sort of system or process to say yes or no, or not that much, but we're willing to support. We can't do this, but we can do that. How do you make some of those determinations?
Number one, you have to have a good team that wants to be responsive, right? So leadership starts at the top. I started out as a constituent services rep, and I'm still very accessible, and I still want to meet and hear people. And that's half of it, right? If people get frustrated if they don't think anybody's listening to them. So have a meeting, have a phone call, bring your team on, vet it out. We do what we can to help as many people as we can. Sometimes we can't, but the fact that we're willing to listen, I think that is the first step. Legislation, like I don't carry legislation that I don't understand, that I cannot explain, or that doesn't somehow affect me, right? I mean, that's how I would carry legislation, because personally, I can speak to mental health. I can speak to, rescuing dogs. I feel passionate and excited about it. But if someone asked me to carry legislation about utilities and gigawatts and, all these things, like I can't explain it. So, you just do what you feel comfortable with. And then people are always approaching me to do things that I don't necessarily want to do. But, again, just by listening to them, learning, maybe later on down the road, or there is some sort of compromise where you're like, oh, I met with people that want us to legalize, cryptocurrencies, for example, right? And I've gone down that crypto path to say, is this, could it be, some sort of, digital currency that the government could use? Or is it a fad that's like a stock? It's just an investment. But whenever I don't understand, again, like I go and dig deep and try to figure it out. And I think people don't hate me because I'm not trying to demonize people. I understand we live in glass houses, so I don't come out and attack other people. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. People are watching and praying. I have a big target on my back, and so I just try to stay humble, and I try not to, to engage and enrage people, even if I don't agree with them. If I don't agree with them, I don't need to jump on the bandwagon, right? I just kind of ignore them and move forward. Yeah.
I love that. So you're looking for alliances. You're looking for ways you can say yes, ways you can support.
Yes.
And you've made a commitment, and your staff has made a commitment to be responsive, to try to ensure that there aren't balls that drop through the cracks, right? And that's always, I think, a challenge when you have hundreds, if not thousands, of requests a day, a week, for support, for help, for connection, for resources, for whatever, that you're able to balance all of those requests and you're able to sort through them appropriately. So congratulations, that's a lot. Now, in our chat, Nancy said, California's financial health ranks 49th out of 50 US states. So what are you doing, Fiona, to try to address this challenge and restore fiscal balance to the state and its citizens?
Yeah, it's not easy. We are over 2/3 Democrats here in the legislature. All of our 8 constitutional officers are Democrats, and so we kind of slant left, right, on many policy issues. Plus, we have a full-time legislature, unlike some of the other states that have every other year or part-time. And so when you have a full-time legislature, they need to find things to do, and that's why we pass a lot more laws than other states. We have a very robust initiative process. Anyone can put an initiative on the statewide ballot, either through signatures or 2/3 of the legislature. And once that passes, that becomes law of the land and supersedes what the legislature is doing. So I try to discourage folks from passing initiatives at the statewide level unless they really understand it, because every one of those ballot measures costs money. And so, we have a lot of people. We had a prison overpopulation issue in our prisons. Well, because we passed 3 strikes, we passed Kayleigh's law, we passed Megan's law, we passed laws against human trafficking. And so that means, as a society, we want more money going to lock people up, meaning take care of the people in prison, right? So I try to just educate folks in terms of how to bring balance. I try to encourage more people like all of you to get involved. We need more business people. Most of the legislators, they come from a nonprofit, they're attorneys, they're maybe teachers or nurses, but they're not business people. So they don't understand, how taxes influence people's decisions. They haven't signed a paycheck, so they don't deal with people. They're workers every day. And so that's what we need more of. And so I try to recruit as many people as I can.
Yeah, as Nancy said in the chat, you have to really study as a voter in California to understand the ballot measures. And I lived 12 years in California, and I have never seen a state so politically active where the citizens are rallying around a particular measure or whatever. And It's interesting how they position it and often how they name it. I don't know, residence for family. Well, of course, who's not going to want to be part of residence for family or family values? But then you read it and you're like, oh, hang on, wait a minute. I don't agree with all of this. Like, there's some things here that really are not aligned with my values or my principles or my beliefs. And so, gosh, it's a little bit of a misnomer to name it whatever they've named it. But it does require really being educated, really being active. So really good thought, Nancy. Thank you for mentioning that.
Or getting together with your friends that are diverse, right? Having speakers or experts come and give you the pro and the con of an initiative. League of Women Voters is neutral, right? And so get more involved in those type of organizations when it comes to, things that are on the ballot or different hot button issues.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Anyone
Linda?
else have any thoughts or questions for Fiona specifically? Fiona, I was wondering if you would mind, because I've had the pleasure of listening to you speak where you sort of said, this was step one, this was step two, this was step three. Would you mind recounting for us just really what each of the steps were in your political career and how that led to the next one? Sometimes it's saying yes to opportunities that present themselves, even if it wasn't necessarily, this is part of the plan and part of my 10-year vision. It's just saying yes to opportunities that present themselves.
Yep. So I started out working part-time for a state senator. So my job was to be out in the community, handling constituent calls, presenting the certificates, sitting in his seat. Then I also got appointed to the Assessment Appeals Board, where I heard property tax cases. I couldn't do it full time, so I was an alternate member. So they called me when one of the permanent members couldn't be there. So I did that for about 7 years. And then I wanted to run for office. And so I ran for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. That was 20 years ago in 2002. I ran for the Asian seat and I got elected to the Asian seat. So I was one of 11, the only Asian person on the council, and also only the second woman out of 11. And that was a big learning experience. Very, very tough. Hated it every single day, right? That's not what I got involved with, to hang out with all these men that just tried to pull you down and push you out of the room. And then the state assembly seat opened up and I was like, I got to get out of here. Otherwise, I got to go back to doing accounting, because I was just so frustrated and disappointed. And it was a hard every single day, right? So I ran against another woman. We were both Democrats, and we committed not to go negative against each other. And, we're still friends to this day. And I learned from my first position, that I was kind of in the minority, that I wasn't going to treat people like that. And so that's why I think I befriended a lot of Republicans, because I understood how it felt to be like in the minority. So I served as majority whip for 4 years and speaker pro tem. That's because I'm a pretty good fundraiser. And in San Francisco, once you get elected in San Francisco, you pretty much are guaranteed a seat unless you screw up somehow, right? So I could travel around the state and try to find candidates, recruit candidates to run. And then, I termed out after 6 years, so I had to do something else. And in California, we have term limits. So it's like musical chairs. When the music stops, you hope you have a chair. And so I didn't have a chair for 2 years. I did some consulting work and, I was like, I don't want to go back. Money does not motivate me, and working for people I don't really like, doing things I don't want to do, going to have to travel or be on a conference call at 2 a.m. is not my thing. So I decided to run for the State Board of Equalization. Again, a tax board, much easier, in my wheelhouse. I was very comfortable there. And then the opportunity opened up to run for state treasurer. And so that's kind of, if this is your calling, you just have to look for those openings and try to position yourself for that next step. So it's like one thing. And then now I'm going to run for lieutenant governor in 2026. It's 3 years away.
So exciting, Fiona. That is amazing.
It's 3 years away, but like I said, as a woman, it's much tougher. So I have to plant my flag early. Over the last 4 months, I raised $1 million. And people know that I'm serious, so they're not going to run for lieutenant governor. That's what I'm trying to do, is to clear the field. But you got to be out there. I'm active on social media. If you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, people know what I'm doing every day, right? And so you have to keep up with your brand and protect your brand and your image. And so if a negative story comes out, people are like, who cares? That happens all the time. People are wrongly accused, but we see Fiona Ma every day. She's here. She's helping this group. She's showing up here. She's advocating. And so that's what I would also say for you ladies who are looking to move up. I mean, stay very positive with your social media. People do check to see what you're up to. If they're curious about whether they should promote you or move you to a new position, they're going to do research on you. And if they don't know a lot about you, then you may be passed up on those opportunities. But if you're out there, whatever it is, PTA or, cheering your kids on or helping your grandparents or your seniors, whatever it is that you're passionate about, that shows who you are, your personality. And then we don't have to go around like trying to puff ourselves up every time, because that's not what we do. And that's not what we're good at, but we are good at being out there helping. And then you just have to do a little self-promotion in a soft kind of way that women are comfortable with.
I love that, Fiona.
Linda,
I have gotten
Linda,
a note from Gloria that you've got to leave,
Yes, thank you.
I will just say that I am so incredibly grateful for the time that you gave us. And I'm so incredibly grateful for your transparency, your honesty, your authenticity, and also your willingness to share so thoroughly some of the more intimate, some of the more personal aspects of your journey. So thank you so much for being so open, so transparent, so authentic and genuine, really sharing with us what it took to get to become California's 34th straight treasurer. And I am cheering you on in that next step in your journey. California deserves to have someone like you in positions of influence and power in the government. So thank you so much for sharing everything with us that led you to this particular point in your journey. I know this isn't the end. You have bigger and greater things ahead of you. And I certainly will be supporting you every single step of the way. And Fiona, again, so grateful for the time that you gave us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.